Welcome. I'm Massumeh Farhad, Chief Curator and the Ebrahimi Family Curator for Persian, Arab, and Turkish art at the Freer Gallery of Art and the Arthur M. Sackler Gallery, which together form the Smithsonian's National Museum for Asian Art. I'm delighted to welcome you to Transcendence, a Sufi musical festival. The program today is one of several events that the Freer and the Sackler have organized over the past few months to explore the intersections of religion and art. They were made possible by a generous grant from the E.J. Lilly Foundation. And the Sufi concerts have allowed us to consider how we present religious ideas, expressions, and practices that are oral rather than visual. I would like to thank my colleagues for their tireless work on this series. Sana Mirza, Lizzie Stein, Deborah Diamond, Gutomo Vicaksono, Cara Nolan, and Andy Fitch. We have a wonderful program for you today. Sahar Mohammadi, whose powerful voice and deep knowledge of Sufi poetry will completely transform you, will perform today with Hoshmand Ebahi on the ney, which is the flute, and Farhad Safari on the tombak, the Persian percussion instrument. Following the performance, Alain Weber, the artistic director of Transcendence Festival, will join me for a Q&A session. Alain first started bringing Sufi musicians to Europe in the 1970s, and today he is the director of several world-famous festivals, including the Fez Festival of Sacred Music in Morocco, where Sahar also performed. Sahar Mohammadi, for many, does not need an introduction, but it is a pleasure to introduce her all the same. She's one of the most talented performers of classical Persian song today. Born and living in Tehran, Sahar studied the Attar, the Sitar, and traditional Persian song with some of the greatest masters. Her voice is both gentle and powerful. It is filled with deep emotions that elaborates on the rich cadence and meaning of Sufi poetry. As you will hear for yourself, her ability to vary her tonal effect is truly impressive. From what sounds like a plainful lament to an imperceptible murmur, her voice beautifully captures and conveys some of the inner meaning and the emotion of Persian mystical poetry. We are extremely grateful to Sahar for performing for us during a rather trying time. Now, Sahar has selected a single poem known as a ghazal in Persian from the Divan collected poems of the 12th century poet Farhad Attar. Unfortunately, we know very little about this giant in Persian Sufi literature. He was born in 1145 and probably died sometime in the 1220s when the Mongols attacked the city of Nishapur in northeastern Iran, where Attar lived. According to historical sources, the Mongol hordes slaughtered most of Nishapur's population, and Attar was probably among them. His appellation, Attar, is actually a pen name and means perfume, suggesting that he was a perfume seller and a pharmacist, as the two professions often overlapped in medieval Iran. Of course, he also became one of the great Sufi or mystical poets, whose reputation only grew over time. One of the charming stories about Attar is that he allegedly bounced the infant Rumi, probably the best known Rumi poet, on his knee when Rumi and his family were passing through Nishapur in the wake of the Mongol invasion. Even if apocryphal, the story affirms Attar's importance in the lineage of great Persian Sufi poets and his position as a critical predecessor to Rumi. Attar's reputation rests on his skill for having refined the ghazal, which I mentioned earlier, a short lyrical poem consisting between 5 to 13 lines. In his works, such as the Divan, Attar infuses Persian lyrical poetry with a new tenderness and a new depth, transforming the ghazal into an intimate poem about love and its hardship. The transformation in the structure of the ghazal was largely inspired by Sufism, Islamic mysticism, which spread in the 12th century. In contrast to the more formal doctrines of Islamic law and theology, mysticism encouraged Muslims to approach God through love and acts of devotion, which in turn found expression in lyrical poetry, such as Attar's work. The Divan, which together with the Mantar al-Tayr, the Conference of the Bird, is the only securely attributed work to this great Sufi poet, comprises of poems devoted to love as a means to reach God, who's considered the ultimate beloved in Sufism. Thank you, and I hope you will enjoy the performance.
عشق جانان، عشق جانان همچو شمعم از قدم تا سر بسوخت. مرغ جان را مرغ جان را چون پروانه بال و پر بسوز. عشق جانان همچو شمعم از قدم تا سر بسوخت. مرغ جان را چون پروانه بال و پر بسوخت. عشقش آتش بود، عشقش آتش بود، کردم مجمرش از دل آتش سوزنده هم بر عود و هم مجمر بسوخت. عشقش آتش بود، کردم مجمرش از دل چود، آتش سوزنده هم عود و هم مجمر بسود. یا ز آتش رویش چو یک اخگر به صحرا افتاد، هر دو عالم چو خاشاکی از آن اخگر بسوخت. خواستم تا پیش جانان پیشکش دستی کرد عشقا، پیش دستی کرد عشقا، جانم اندر بر بسوخت. نیست جز خشک و ترم در دست، نیست جز خشک و ترم در دست، جز خاکستری، نیست جز خشک و ترم در دست، جز خاکستری، که آتش غیرت در آمد، آتش غیرت در آمد، خشک و تر یک سر بسوخت. دادم آن خاک سر آخر بر سر کویش به باد، برق استغنام بجست از وی با خاک سر بسوخت. گفتم اکنون ذره دیگر بمانم، گفت باش ذره دیگر چه باشد، ذره دیگر بسوخت چون رسید این جایگه عطار نه هست و نه نیست، کفر و ایمانش نماند و مؤمن و کافر بسوخت. خواستم تا پیش جانان، خواستم تا پیش جانان پیشش جان آورم، پیش دستی کرد عشق، پیش دستی کرد عشق و جانم اندر بر نه قدرت که با وی نشینم، نه طاقت که جز وی ببینم، شد از آفت عقل و دینم. ای دلارا سرو بالا، کار عشقم چه بالا گرفته، بر سر من جنون جا گرفته. نه قدرت که با وی نشینم، نه طاقت که جز وی ببینم، شد از آفت عقل و دینم. ای دلارا سرو بالا، کار عشقم چه بالا گرفته، بر سر من جنون جا گرفته. جای عقل عشقت یک جا گرفته، خانه دل به یغما گرفته. آفت تن فتنه جان، رهزن دین دزد ایمان. ترک چشمت نیزه پنهان، ترک چشمت نیزه پنهان، آشکار آشکار آشکارا. ای نگارا خانه دل به یغما گرفته، بر سر من جنون جا گرفته. سوزم از سوز گریم از دست بداندیش، خواهمش بینم کم و بیش. گریه راه تماشا گرفته، گریه راه تماشا گرفته. جای عقل عشقت یک جا گرفته، خانه دل به یغما گرفته. جای عقل عشقت یک جا گرفته، گریه راه تماشا گرفته. ای وصالت، ای وصالت آرزوی عاشقان، وی خیالت پیش روی عاشقان. یا هر کجا کردم نظر بالا و پست، جلوه‌ای از روی زیبای تو هست. خرقه پوشان محو رخسار تو اند، باده نوشان مست دیدار تو اند. باده نوشان مست دیدار تو اند.
I hope you enjoyed that transformative performance, which was delivered from Tehran, Iran to us. So it was truly a treat. And I'm delighted to welcome Alain Weber, the artistic director of the Transcendence Festival, to speak to us a little bit about both Sahar's music and a little bit about Sahar, who unfortunately cannot be with us today. So Alain, welcome again, and thank you for arranging this program for us. And I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about Sahar, given the fact that you know her and she has performed in some of your festivals.
Yeah, well, she's one of the main vocal woman singer nowadays for Persian classical music, and she's been traveling all around the world for a few years now. And she's like, well, in fact, there are a lot of young women nowadays learning music in Iran and also learning singing. They have schools, music schools, school conservatory of music too, where they learn in different universities. You will find also a lot of women ensemble performing music together and also learning instrument. And Sahar, in fact, she was really pushed by her father. Her father was really encouraging her when she was young to learn music, and she has the chance to work with one of the big masters of today Persian music, Kezestun Purnazeri, who is a sitar player. His two sons also became very famous nowadays. So she's completely into this musical background, which, as you know, that we call the Radif for the Persian music, which, by the way, became part of the intangible heritage of the UNESCO in 2009. And the ability that she has is that she's able to sing in different style of expressing different feelings, expression linked to Sufi poetry. And you know how much this poetry is rich, and especially also Hafez, because we did not spoke. Hafez is not really like, you know better than me, he's not really like a Sufi poet, but he's the man poet. I'm still amazed to see that how Iran people are still living with poetry in the daily life. And for example, when you take Hafez, they all know about his poetry, and they can be reciting it almost every day. And for this ability, Sarah has been, as we say, she's one of the main women singers today in Iran.
I think I know there's been a lot of back and forth about her poems, and we've had, of course, she's the artist, and improvisation plays a very important part in the style. So I think she slightly decided to do something different, but I'm delighted that she did choose a piece from Attar, who is one of the, as I mentioned, one of the giants of Sufi poetry. And there was a question actually by one of our listeners about the relationship of the music to the poetry. So the poetry is written independently of the music, but even if you don't have a voice like Sahar, or you don't have somebody like her performing it, there is a rhythm and cadence to Persian poetry, even if you don't sing it this way. But what happens is that the poetry is developed independently, and then performers like Sahar and many others sort of set it to what you would call a melody, according to the different modes of Persian music. So that is sort of the relationship of poetry and music, which I saw the one of the questions that our that one of our listeners had. Well, this is a question for you, Alain, because one of our participants says, is there any chance one of your Sufi festivals can happen virtually during the pandemic?
Yeah, well, let's see what's going to happen in the future, but for sure, in one way, we're all hoping that we'll be able to do it live performance in the future, in the wherever the country is concerned. But of course, I think we're going to the direction now to be able to share with a lot of more people this beautiful music and Sufi music that is spreading still nowadays in the world. So of course, we'll be hoping to be able to have a live concert that way that we could see from Europe or America.
Mm-hmm. So actually, as we were planning this this program, and it's sort of a mini festival. It's not quite the festival that Alain is used to doing, but it's a mini festival. We did want to do it live. And if you have been listening, we had a group from India. We had someone from France, and next week it'll be Morocco, and this was from Iran. So we did actually want to do it live, but sort of our technical abilities are not quite there yet. So we decided it would be safer to record these performances, and then hopefully in the future we will do them.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. It was not so easy, and for technical reason, and also to be able to give the best quality of it. Sometimes that's what we did it this way, and we have so many small problems. I mean, not that small. Like when we were doing the Rajasthan one, the date was supposed to be live. It was a storm happened in the village, so we have to record it again twice. It's also the question that all this work is done by distance, so we have to always to be very careful to be able to get the best quality of sound and image.
Mm-hmm. I think one of our listeners asked about the flute, the ney, which is actually sort of a very traditional instrument, not only in Iran, but the rest of the region. And actually it has many Sufi connotations, because actually the great Masnavi or work of Rumi begins with the lament of the flute. And as you can sort of see, it has this sort of really resonating sound. And it is believed to be the closest to the human voice, because it has this range in giving you different sounds. And it's a wind instrument, and with one hole at the back that I think sort of creates the variation. But maybe Alain knows more about.
No, you're right. It's the spiritual instrument of Sufis, the one that's been tolerated always. And Rumi has been written so much poetry about the ney, the idea of the wind, the spirit and the wind, and the technique that you will find in Persian is really the original technique. So it's little different from the Arabic ney. Each different style country has developed its own style, but there's a way that in the Persian way of blowing in the instrument, you have a very specific sound, and that's very specific from the Iran tradition, and it's really into this idea of expressing the spirit, like coming out from the body. And that was also the old things with Attar, who was really concerned with that. We must not forget Attar is very famous for doing his famous long story and poetry of the conference of the birds that has been so many books about it, and so many. He was also like one way a storyteller also. That's something make him maybe a little different from other poets too.
I came across a wonderful quote, which I won't be able to do properly, but it was by one of the contemporaries of Attar, and it says, "Music gives us to what is already in your heart, And I think with Sahar, and actually with both her two musicians, you really get that sense that you know, the three of them really use their instruments, whether it was the voice or the ney or the tombak, to really give rise to what is in their hearts. And there is this wonderful intimacy about Sufi inspired music. I think we had that last week with Walid Ben Salim, and this week with Sahar, that you just feel it's really, it is from the heart, and that's really the essence of Sufi devotional music that has sort of persisted throughout the ages. There was a commentary about the tolerance of Sufis by the government. I mean, Sufism has, you know, is sort of an integral part of Islam and the Islamic world for millennia. So, and there's always been sort of these sort of back and forth about tolerating Sufism or tolerating them less. They're tolerated in some countries more than they are in others. So it's been this back and forth for centuries, but it really is part of the Islamic tradition. It's just sort of trying to, again, reach that level of ultimate understanding of the love of God, but it's through a different means. And this is what the poetry is all about, and certainly the act of singing and reciting it is another way of getting closer to God, or in Sufi language, he is the ultimate beloved that all Muslims, or you know, or Sufis are striving for. I don't know if from your experience, Alain, I mean, you've had concerts all over Europe and elsewhere on Sufi music. It has been clearly tolerated, and it's been celebrated. Is that, I hope I'm correct in asking you that.
You mean this tolerated, you mean in the world in general?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, of course it is. Well, it's, as we say, as we mentioned a few times before, let's see how Sufi music became so much important in the world of music and art in the world. And it's much more than curiosity. It became part of our life. And most of the festivals, not only the World Music Festival, but in general, Sufi poetry has gained so much respect today. And, you know, there was, I heard that in America, the most famous poet is Rumi. I don't know if it's true or not, but is the bestseller selling books are from Rumi regarding poetry. That because it reaches everybody, you know, as you said, it's a relation deeply with our art, and it's also concerned a lot of people who might not necessarily belong to a specific religion. It's some beyond religion, and it's touch our art very deeply. And especially for me, the way of singing in the Persian style, you know, there is something that so much longing for love. There is a kind of melancholy, but not just like a romantic melancholy. It's something very deep inside, you know, come back from the edge, and also something very brave. There is something very strong and brave, and that's why I'm always so much in love with Persian music and poetry.
You have impeccable taste, Anna. But I just want to end with a comment that one of our listeners made that seems very appropriate, and I will read it for you. That also sort of the essence of Sufism is about the breath, and from the chest the heart shared by the singer, the ney player, and the poet in different ways. And I think that is a very important point. And again, it's this very sort of internal sense that I think that Sufism has, this very sort of personal, internal, and certainly the breath plays a critical role going back to not only Sahar singing, but also the flute and the ney, because it is, as Alain said, it is by breathing into the ney that the instrument, the flute, that it comes alive and sort of, you know, tells us the stories that it does. So clearly you can see that Alain and I can go on, but I know that you all have other things to do today. I wanted to thank you all very much for being with us. And for those of you who are by now hooked on Sufi music, and I hope that you are, I wanted to encourage you to register for our final performance next Wednesday, exactly the same time, of the Andalusian Sama of Tetuan, which is performed by Zainab Aflaila from Morocco. So we hope to see all of you next Wednesday, and thank you again, and stay safe.
Thank you.
And thank you, Alain.
Thank you.